Welcome everybody to my little Lord of the Rings stream. Please check that the sound is working. I've been having issues with my voice being out of sync. I mean, I could put a patch over to stop my... but just to check if it's okay, because I've cleared all the cache and the cookies on the internet, so I'm hoping the sound is perfect. Yay! Awesome stuff. Okay, so today we shall be unboxing this original Fellbeast. Now this is from the Games Workshop strategy battle game, and today what we'll be doing is we shall be just prepping up the miniature ready for painting. Now these are my Lord of the Rings private collection, so I will not be speed painting these miniatures. These will be painted to a better, higher standard than I would normally do, because they're Lord of the Rings and they're my collection. Because they're mine, they're my precious. Okay, let me just tell you a little bit about this miniature. Now, if you play the strategy battle game, this miniature is based mainly on will points. So you got might, fate, and will. Now, what happens with the Fellbeasts is they are a spirit beast, commanded by Sauron, of course. So what happens is they cannot actually die on the battlefield. What will happen is if you get their will points to 0, they are just removed, because they take 7 days, as they say, to recuperate and get back into action. The only way the Fellbeasts will die in game is if it's killed by Sauron. Now, also, because they're based on will points, what happens with this miniature in game is the further away from Sauron they are in game, the less will points they have for battle. So, for example, if you have the Fellbeast and you're having a tabletop game based on the Shire, that is the furthest distance away you can get from, that's the furthest distance away you can get from Sauron. So they actually start with 7 will points, but they also start with 0 might and 0 fate points, and that will cost you 55 points for your tabletop game. So if you are having a 500 point army for your tabletop games, what you can do, you can add points as well. If you want to fully kit out your Fellbeast, it's going to cost you about 110 points. That will give you 2 might, 2 fate, and 14 will points for your beast. Now, in a tabletop game with a Fellbeast with 14 will points, this is one badass beast for your games. Also, this beast is also a flying beast, so it has no movement issues at all. You can actually fly this anywhere around the table. It's got a movement placement of about 12 inches, which is 28 centimeters, so it can move anywhere on the board with no hindrance at all to any terrain. The other thing with the Fellbeasts, if you are playing the game, is they cannot go underground. So if you are doing a tabletop game in Moria, you would not be able to use these games in anywhere underground. So Moria is a no-no for this beast. Also, this beast invokes terror. It invokes terror in all your miniatures within a 28 centimeter range of this beast. So if you are again playing anywhere, say you're playing in Osgiliath, what will happen is you will get a -1 point towards your miniature in Osgiliath due to terror. So that's about all I can think about off the top of my head for this mini. What we'll do now is we'll crack on and open it, but I will say hello to everybody in chat first. So hello to, I can see Rod's there, I see Nafe's there, Michelle's there, no Sculptor's there, Gareth the Star Wars Man's there, Tim's in chat, James McCoy's in chat. James, I hope James McCoy, of course, is used to work for Games Workshop, so hopefully he is understanding everything I'm talking about, and he can correct me if I am saying anything wrong about the rules for the game. But I think I've just about nailed it. So let me know, James, if I am giving any wrong advice And Stuart's in chat. And is he there? Is he there? I don't know. I'll say Tal anyway. Okay, so I'm going to open this. This is an actual sealed unit. So we'll get that lovely smell. Ooh. Like I say, today is just unboxing. We shall try to stick the miniature together, get it prepped up ready for painting. Like I say, I'm not going to be rushing the Lord of the Rings miniatures, and what I mean by that, I'm not going to be speed painting. I will be doing batch painting with the Moria goblins, the Rohan miniatures, but most of the metal, I will just be taking my time and getting all the minis ready. It's like a cake. Okay, let's have a little look-see inside. It's like Christmas in Mordor. Okay. So we got your little pamphlet. This is advertising the Return of the King, of course. And you get all your little bits inside. Absolutely awesome stuff. Okay. Now I am hoping once the world kind of gets back to normal, James, as James is in chat, I was hoping that you can start coming around the house and we can start maybe having a few games of Lord of the Rings and stuff like that. So that would be nice. So we got the little, that's your how to put together instruction manual, and as you can see, they've moved on quite a bit now since these days. Very simple to do. What we shall be doing today is we'll be cleaning up the metal. We'll be sticking this together. We shall make the base a little bit more scenic. We'll add some rocks to the base. But I'm going to be adding reins to the beast. The old version, see, it doesn't have. It's got the actual bit in its mouth there to have some reins, and you can see the position of the hand on the picture there. So he is supposed to be holding some reins, but with this miniature they did not do that. So we are actually going to add reins today to this miniature. Okay, so of course the wings are always plastic. Now the only miniature they released fully, Games Workshop released fully in metal, was the Balrog. They released the very first edition Balrog. There's two different versions of the Balrog when it was first released, and the very first one, which is of course the highly collectible one, it came completely metal body and it had metal wings. The second edition, which I have, is a metal body and comes with plastic wings. But it's the very first edition Balrog, of course, which is the highly collectible one because it's completely metal. Okay, now this set does come with Frodo holding the One Ring. It is based on Osgiliath as well, where he's holding that One Ring in the two towers. And we got the Ringwraith, of course, and the base. One tail, one little tail, one head, one neck, one body, and of course the claws. So we'll get this up there. We'll start prepping these up. Now, when you do your miniatures, of course, with metal, you will be needing metal files. For the plastic, you'll need just some snips. So we're going to remove all the bits for the wings. We'll just be as careful as possible. What you got to be careful of is these miniatures are like 20 years old now. So what happens is old Games Workshop plastic can become very, very brittle. So we have to be very careful with these miniatures, with the plastic, because you could have a risk of parts snapping quite easily because the plastic does go brittle, like I said. What you'll find with most of these miniatures, the Felbeasts, especially if you're buying anything from eBay, I buy loads and loads of old Lord of the Rings miniatures from eBay. It's like a little hobby of mine. It's great fun. But what you will find is most of the Felbeasts, if you see them for sale second hand, these parts are the bits that are missing. You'll find the claws on the front of the wings. It's quite hard to actually get a complete miniature. It's quite easy to get the body of the miniature, but what you'll find is these parts are missing. So if you are looking for miniatures on eBay, just check the wings here and make sure they got the claws on, because you'll find most of the people that sell these miniatures online, you'll find these parts are missing. Okay, so like I say, the plastic does become brittle, and anybody who collects Games Workshop miniatures from the 80s, 90s, you'll agree with me that the old plastic does become very brittle and can snap quite easy. So we're just slowly going around, taking off all the excess parts. And what we'll do is just give them a good clean up. Like I say, today is really a clean-up day, getting the miniature stuck together. We'll add those reins. What I'm going to use to add the reins is the old metal wire. Now, most of you know I love using metal wire for my bows, to add bowstrings to my miniatures, but it's also fantastic for adding all sorts of things. For example, with the WARHAMMER, you can use this for all the rigging on the WARHAMMER. When we get to the elephant, we shall actually add rigging to the complete miniature, which will be awesome fun to see. Yes, Gareth. Yes, I mean this is probably my third or fourth one over the 20 years that I've put together. Okay, so what I'm doing now, I'm just a little standing knife, and I'm just actually edging away the excess plastic. Now, if I remember correctly, the last time I built one of these, the wings didn't actually fit that well to the miniature. So what we got here, we got the old plastic putty from Vallejo. So that should be a lifesaver today, because I do know years ago the wings were quite difficult. They had little gaps and things. But we never had the Vallejo putty years ago. We used to use the old green stuff, and that stuff was two-part mix, and it was a nightmare. It's just rolling out, and I didn't like the green stuff much. The liquid green stuff, that was good stuff. But this Vallejo putty is definitely the way to go. Like I said, these shows might be a little bit slower than what you're used to, because I will be taking my time on these miniatures. So you'll have to bear with me. The hour might go quite quickly for me, because I'm loving every second of it. But you guys might be like, oh, come on, master. It's all in the preparation of these minis. And you've got the mould line goes all the way down the wing, see? So what we do is the edge of the blade, and I just take away that excess and just scrape off the flashing. Well, believe it or not, Gareth, I can actually paint to quite a high standard. Believe it or not. I mean, everybody sees my painting and they're like, yeah, tabletop standard, but I can actually go a little bit higher. I can actually go a little bit higher than tabletop standard, believe it or not. Now and again. Yes, yes, good idea. I've not tried that, James. Back in the day, I had to matte varnish them. Back in the day, I had to matte varnish them before painting as extra structural support. That would make sense. Take care, Red Wolf. Thanks for popping on. Have you had your dragons yet? They have been posted. Posted your dragons off to you. Yeah, so we're just going around all the plastic here, taking off the extra, just being careful with the blade, of course. And what we do then is 45 degrees with the blade, and we're just scraping off that extra mould line that's in the tips there. So it's nice and smooth. Awesome stuff. I hope you really like it. I sent the White Dragon in its original box, so it's all in its original box for you, Red Wolf. So it's really nicely sealed. It's a big box, by the way, so be warned. It's a huge box. It's a huge box. Okay, so there we are. Those wings are quite tidily done. A little bit more there. Okay, so moving on. There's our little wings prepped up. We'll move on to the body. Now, what you'll find with these bodies is these spines here. They're always, every single one of these are painted in the past. They've always had wonky spines, so what we need to do is straighten out all the spines. Just use your fingers. The metal is quite pliable on these. You just don't want to wiggle the metal too much, because what will happen is it will snap. So what we do is we just make sure they're all level. Now, as you can see, I don't know if you can focus there. As you can see here, we got flashing coming off all these parts. So what we're going to do is get my little snips here, and we're going to slowly go through each one of these and take off all that excess, just like so. It's just a tiny bit, taking off all the excess flashing. It's a lovely weight to this metal. Very, very nice. Actually, we should, with the old miniatures, we used to have the sculptors' names on the old boxes. There we are. Michael Perry. This was designed and sculpted by Michael Perry, by the way. Now, this is when Games Workshop were really, really cool, and they used to give respect to all their sculptors. You don't actually see that very much anymore. I can't. I want Gareth. I don't know. Do they still put the sculptors' names on the boxes, Gareth? I don't. I'm not 100% sure, because I haven't really looked at the new stuff. Yes, yes. What you'll find as well with this miniature is you'll see a lot of these miniatures painted up, and people have painted the whole miniature, not realizing that some of the spines were actually flashing that needed to be removed. So make sure you remove all your flashing, and as you can see, there's lots of bits on this miniature that I need to file off now. So what we use for that is we have two types of files. I got a medium file. This is from Army Painter. This is quite a rough file. This is for big work. Like in between here, we just start taking away the old metal. And then when we want to finish off the filing, we use a nice, very fine file, and that'll just make it a nice smooth finish. So what we're going to do now is going through each one of these, just like we're flossing our teeth. Flossing our teeth with a file, how about that? And we're just taking off the edge for each one of these. And all the way along the spine there is a line, so we do need to go over each part just to make sure. And also on the front you'll find there will be a slight line, so we just take that away there. What will happen, see, if you don't take away all these parts of the flashing, once you add your primer coat and you do a dry brush or anything like that, what happens, of course, is because you've got a tiny bit of flashing that's protruding or you've left, that part will instantly be highlighted when you go over with a dry brush, and that's why it's so important to remove all the flashing on your miniatures if you want a really, really nice finish. Hello, Michael. So Captain Evo. You can, of course, use the little. You're talking about those little nail files, aren't you? Nail files are more of a sandpaper. These little files, you can buy them in packs for free. You can get them from Army Painter. You can get them from the hobby shops. They really aren't expensive, Mike. So I would definitely suggest getting some round ones. Round ones are the best ones to use. I mean, I got a little flat one. Games Workshop does do this is actually a Games Workshop one, but I use any old file. But at hobby shops you can get all these little files from. But you want an ultra fine file, and you want quite a rough one. So and like I say, Army Painter are a lot cheaper than Games Workshop. Yeah, yes, and I agree totally. The sandpaper for plastic, if you wanted to file these little sandpaper the edges here, that would work quite well. You have to remember as well, if I'm going to talk a little bit about Reaper miniatures now. If you are using your Bones miniatures, using a file on the old Bones miniatures is a complete waste of time, because all that does is move the plastic back and forth and make it go into a black gooey mess on your miniature. So if you are using soft plastic, all I would recommend to clean off your miniatures is a crafting knife. I don't use any files. But metal, definitely. Metal, you do need your metal files for sure. Hello, Renegade Shank. How are you, my friend? I still haven't forgiven Renegade Shank for giving me IBS. Okay, that's coming on nicely. A little bit more. And like I say, you will have to bear with me. These Lord of the Rings shows are going to be quite slow compared to what you're used to. But I will be doing fast painting when we get onto the Moria Goblins and all the large units, because they will be painted for tabletop standard going all the way through. But for my main heroes and beasts, I will be taking a lot more time. And of course, for me, this is highly, highly enjoyable. For me, it's highly enjoyable. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. What we do now as well is we pre-fit all the parts as well. So what we're doing is we're taking away the flashing. We're on the neck part now. We're just taking away the pre-flashing from all over the miniature. These snips are your Citadel snips, but you can use... Oops, excuse me, I was just trying to show you my other snips. You can use cheap snips. These snips, I think, came with my 3D printer. Now, for snips, when you are doing any miniature, when you're buying your snips, what you need is that flat edge. So you've got on these are made specially for your sprues. And of course these ones came with the 3D printers, just cheap ones, but it's just as good as the Games Workshop ones. Now the reason you have the flat part is so you can get up really nice and close. You can get up really nice and close to your miniature to take away that flashing. So when you are buying some cheap snips, to say you're going to the hobby shop or the pound store, you're really looking for a flat edge like this. You're looking for a flat edge for your snips, and that's the most important part, because a lot of snips, they don't have the flat edge. So what's going to happen is when you remove your flashing or you remove your sprues, you're going to have 2 or 3 millimeters of the sprue still showing on your miniature. This way you're getting a much finer, cleaner cut. It makes it much easier for when you're working on your miniatures. Okie dokie, carrying on. It's so nice to be doing these miniatures. I get so excited about the Lord of the Rings miniatures because, like I said, I've been collecting and painting fantasy since the 80s, but it wasn't really until the Lord of the Rings collection started back in the early 2000s, 2000s I think it was, that I started buying the old magazine, the fortnightly magazine. And it got me through my job. Like I say, I was a chef at the time, so I was buying the magazine every fortnight, painting up the miniatures. Because as a chef, I was a live-in position, so the painting was my time off, and I'd be doing split shifts. So I was like 3 hours on and 6 hours in. So all the time I had off spare, I'd be in my live-in position in the kitchens, and of course I'd be painting my miniatures. That would be my little hobby, apart from the naughty women and the drinking and the smoking. Apart from that, I was painting the miniatures. But it really was a relaxing thing, especially after working in the kitchen. And I just loved it so much. It was, part of the films. The miniatures were just absolutely beautiful. They're based all on the films, and they were such good sculpts. So definitely my favourite miniatures ever. And I have such fond memories of the early 2000s painting all these miniatures. So it's really nice to start painting them all again and going back a few years when my life was very, very different. Yes, I got all the White Dwarf magazines. I actually started collecting White Dwarf when they first came out, because I used to get the White Dwarf. I used to get the Dragon magazine. Does anybody remember the Dragon magazine? And do you remember when White Dwarf actually used to advertise other companies? When Games Workshop used to share the love with other companies, they used to advertise other companies in White Dwarf. Now you'll be lucky to. You don't see none of that now. The other magazine I used to get, because back in the late 80s and early 90s, the only way you could sell your painted miniatures or do swapsies with miniatures, because remember back when I was doing all this, there was no internet, there was no mobile phones, but you had a magazine. In the UK, you had this one magazine, and it was called Model Mart. Now, I don't know if I'm sure James remembers this magazine. It's called Model Mart, and it was a monthly magazine, and it kept you all up to date with the world of miniatures. And it was a fantastic magazine, because at the back of that magazine, it was like a free ads. So you would put in all your miniatures, all your painted miniatures, and of course you'd buy and sell, and you'd get known through the back of this magazine. Of course, nowadays everything is internet based, so you don't ever see stuff like that anymore. I don't even know if Model Mart is still a magazine that you can buy. So we're just taking off all the flashing still. Like I say, it does take a while if you're doing a proper job. If you want to get a very, very nice job done, you need to make sure it's all nice and clean. And what we do as well as we go along, I remember when I did this miniature before, this part was a bit of a nightmare. I don't know if it's the same with this one. It's actually not too bad. It's actually fitting quite well. But this tailpiece used to be quite a difficult part to fit. But then again, I am going back 20 years, so things have changed since then. So that just goes on there like so, and we'll stick that on later. Okay, we'll move on to the Ringwraith. Now again, the Ringwraith, you've got to be careful because you get the bent swords. This as well, if you are buying your miniatures online from a second-hand dealer, again, be careful and watch out for the Ringwraith. What you'll find is the sword is the first thing to snap off. As you can see, it's bent there, so what we've got to do is be really careful. It might snap, so I'm going to have to be really careful. If I snap it, I won't cry, I promise. But we'll just move that slowly back into position. You can just do it in very slow movements. There we go. Thank goodness for that. Now, what normally happens is that sword is the first thing to snap, or if someone sells the miniature, you'll find the sword is either bent or missing. But there we are, it's complete there, which is awesome. Now, what we're going to do with the Ringwraith is we're going to take off all the flashing. Now, I've actually got a few Ringwraiths here to show you. These are the original Ringwraiths that I've painted. Now, I have got a little bit more to do on these Ringwraiths. Of course, all I've done is add black, but we need to put the highlights on these Ringwraiths. So you got 4 of the basic Ringwraiths here. Very simple to do because it's just black. But what we'll be doing, because we're doing the Fellbeast as well, I thought I could actually start finishing off the cloaks on here, start doing some highlights. So you've got a collection of 4 of the ordinary Ringwraiths, and then of course this is the actual Witch King. Oh, that's what I didn't mention as well. The Fellbeasts and the Ringwraiths, of course, are spiritual beasts. So if you are playing the strategy battle game and you have the ring bearer and you put on the ring, the Ringwraiths can still attack you and they can still see you. There's no hiding from the Ringwraiths. And talking of Ringwraiths and the ring, we got little Frodo there. I don't know if you can see. Let's see if we can get some focus. I can show you Frodo. Here he is, and he's got the little one ring in his hand, and this is from the Osgiliath. Now what I'll be doing with this guy, little Frodo here, I use MSP paints for all my miniatures now. This is the white brush on primer from MSP, and it's absolutely amazing for metal. So we'll be using this one for Frodo. And we have the black primer from MSP paints from Reaper Miniatures. That's what we'll be using for the actual main body of the Fellbeast. Okay, so let's carry on. We need to keep on filing all these minis, making sure they're all nice and tidy. I'm just going around each one. Okay. What I'm going to start doing now is I'm going to start fitting the miniature together, and we'll make sure that all the parts are flush, or flush as possible. Some of these old miniatures, as James will probably tell you if he's still in chat, is a lot of the old Games Workshop miniatures. Their fitting wasn't the best. Let me put my focus back. There you go. There you go. And the fittings weren't always the best. Yes, the magazines. I really miss my monthly magazines. I mean, I used to have all these beautiful magazines. Everything is internet now. I know I'm doing an internet-based show with the Lord of the Rings, but it's the same with books. I want a physical copy of all my books. I'll give you an example. We are talking about this game today. What I've done, this is the Siege of Gondor. Okay, now with the Siege of Gondor, this is for the strategy battle game. What you'll find in this booklet here is you're going to have scenarios for your games. This will include Osgiliath, and it gives you all the details and information about all the armies. So for each different campaign, of course, you had a hard copy of all the rules, and you can still get your hard copy, which is fine. But what I'm trying to say as well is everything is look at Ty. Ty's like, get back to the down base. I just want a hard copy of all my books. I love looking at all the pictures. And this one, of course, is based on what we're doing. So you've got the Siege of Gondor, and of course it's got scenarios for Osgiliath as well. It'll tell you a little story about, what's going on with the Osgiliath and what parts to do, and then you've got Minas Tirith, and it's absolutely awesome. I have every single book based on the old Lord of the Rings strategy battle game. I've also started buying the new ones, but I want to try and show you all the old stuff in every show. And like I say, this is the Siege of Gondor, and these were released by Games Workshop, and it's like rules, scenarios, modelling tips, absolutely awesome stuff. And of course, if you are a collector, if you are a huge collector, what you need to do if you want to collect the old Lord of the Rings, because the old Lord of the Rings, in my opinion, is the best ever. And I'm talking about Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. Now, The Hobbit is okay. It's okay. But if you want pure goodness, you want to try and pick up one of these books. This is the old rules for the Lord of the Rings. This is the old, the very first edition of the rules in hardback. And it gives you a whole... It's just awesome. So if you want to start collecting, go onto eBay and see if you can pick up a copy of this book, because what it is, you've got Games Workshop have many miniatures, of course, that are out of production now. Like this miniature is out of production, but what you'll find is, let me just show you, quickly show you. What you'll find is, I just find this miniature. Whoa, there it is. Oh, right, okay, 1 second, nearly there. What you'll find is, you've got all the old miniatures. Let me just grab this here, just quickly show you. Sorry, I'm losing track, Ty. I'll get back to it. Oh, I need to adjust the camera, I'm sorry. I was going to say, I do get carried away, so you'll have to excuse me. I love this stuff. I love this stuff. Okay, so where are we? We're not in Rohan. We are... No, we're not in Moria. Where's it gone? Osgiliath. Here we are. We should be down here somewhere. Yeah, so what it is, when you get this book, you'll have... There's Gondor. Where are you? I should be here somewhere. Here we are. We're getting there. Mordor. There we are. Here they are, Ringwraiths. Right, so these are the two. These are the two miniatures. These are the two miniatures, of course, that are no longer in production. So this is why it's so important. Well, it is. It's not important, but it's important to me to get your old books, because what you got here is you've got a painting guide for a start. You've got a painting guide for how the old miniatures were painted, and you've got all the rules for all the old miniatures. So you can actually have your old miniatures and play with the old miniatures. Now, what Games Workshop are doing, which is really quite nice, is they are doing like re-releases of the old OOP miniatures. But I would recommend getting this book because you've got all the original rules for those OOP miniatures in these books. So, there we are. There's me going on and on again. Okay. Okay, I'm carrying on. Okay. Okay, so what we need to do now again is test the parts for fitting. So this goes onto there, and it's quite snug. So I reckon we can actually start gluing. A little bit more work around the edges here. Any parts that I see which will have gaps, we shall be adding the old Veleco putty. That's the ultimate stuff. Okay, I think I'm ready to stick that on there. What we'll do is we'll stick that on there. Now, for super glue, I use the Loctite super glue. It's the liquid based super glue. I've tried the gel super glues on my Games Workshop miniatures, but what happens is the gel super glue can dry into a crusty blob, and it can actually push away the metal because it's kind of expands a little bit. So if you use the liquid super glue, you'll get a much better fix. So all I do is I just add a little bit of super glue, just there. Don't need a lot. And we just stick the head on. There we are. We just hold it there for a few minutes. You can get super glue like improver. I've never tried it, but sometimes you can actually stick metal together. I've had it a few times on Games Workshop miniatures and Reaper miniatures, and no matter what you do, the super glue doesn't seem to hold the metal together. It will stick your fingers together in seconds, but it doesn't actually stick the metal together. And then other times, like so, it'll stick instantly. Now, as you can see, even with all the flashing taken away, on this side of the miniature, as you can see, there's a little gap there and there. Now, that little gap will be filled in with the Veleco putty, but of course, once you've got this miniature sitting on top of the miniature, you're not going to see any of that seat anyway, but we'll still do a professional job and fill in all those little gaps anyway. Goopy glue. Okay, so moving on. We've got to be careful now, and we shall start checking the sizes of these little legs here. Again, they go in quite well, but there will be a need for that Veleco putty, and it does remind me of the old days because you can see a little gap. It's not huge, but it's enough that if you want a very nice finish to your miniature, you do want to make sure you remove all the flashing and you use that filler before you prime your miniature. So we're just making sure there's no little lumps, because even the tiniest little lump that's from the mold process can actually push out the miniature like 0.5 millimeter or so. So you're left with quite a gap to fill. So you'll be surprised how close you can get. Oh, see, this is falling off. There we go. There you go. Stick on. There's me saying that the head had stuck on. It didn't. So, oh, it's fallen off again. There we go. So I'm gonna have to keep my fingers on this for a bit longer, guys. See what I said to you about it not sticking together? Just proving my point. This is where it can be time consuming, where you're actually holding the metal for like 10 minutes. Renegade Shank. Well, this has got a lip on it. The only time, Nath, I would suggest pinning is when your wings don't have. I mean, on this here, look, you've got a lovely little insert, so we definitely don't need to do any pinning on this miniature at all. But definitely on the Reaper miniatures, some of the Reaper miniatures wings. You do need to pin them. I mean, pinning. I will do a video in the future of the pinning of miniatures. But what you really need if you want to do some pinning of miniatures is you need to get yourself a small little vise. I mean, I've got all the drill bits and stuff. But there's no way I am going to do that on a live show, because I can guarantee you I will slip off the metal and I will drill straight through one of my fingers. But I need to invest in the tiny little tabletop vise, because that's what you use for your pinning, just to make sure. Wow, I didn't realise what the time was. I am so sorry that I've done nothing. I've absolutely loved this show to bits. This is probably my favourite. This has probably been my favourite show so far, and I've done nothing in the hour but clean my minis. Yeah. Thank you, Rod. Yeah, you're not used to me going slow, are you? All you guys are like, God, he's going slow today. I just want just enjoying every moment of it. You can't rush. You can't rush when you've just unboxed an original Lord of the Rings miniature. You can't. You gotta just take your time, enjoy the smells of that metal. Thank you, Crafty Tibbles. No, I absolutely love all this. What I'll do is, like I say, I'm not going to be able to do much more now. The time is ticking on. We shall be sticking these little legs on. So what we'll do is I shall stick these legs on, and hopefully it's not going to fall apart on me. I'm scared of that head falling off now. So what we'll do here is we just add a little bit of super glue here, just around this part here, and we'll just add this one leg. That fitted in nicely there. Like I say, with the metal, we do have to hold the pieces in part until it's dry, of course, so that is going to take a little bit of time. Now, of course, I'm not going to finish this miniature off stream because I want to actually complete this miniature with you guys as we go on each week. So what I'll do is next Friday, I will stick this miniature together. So on next Friday's Lord of the Rings show, the whole miniature will be stuck together. and it will be on the base. Excuse me. So what we'll do is we shall go through the painting together, including the Ringwraith and Frodo. Now, these little hobbits, like I say, I have been doing my Twitch show for 18 months now, and it's been a fantastic 18 months, but I've never actually painted this small and mini live on stream. So, it's going to be a challenge. But I am going to enjoy it, and we shall do this together, and we'll see how we get on, and that'll be for next week. I don't know how far we'll get next week. I will be showing, I do want to show you how to do the reins for this miniature, so it won't be painted next week at all, but I'll stick it together. I'll show you how to add the reins to the miniature, which you can utilise in any of your other miniatures that you use for your games. Renegade Shank, naughty, naughty, naughty. And this leg is still not stuck together. My goodness me. Yeah, so what I'm going to do now anyway is I am going to say goodnight. I will stick the rest of this miniature together. And then next week we shall carry on, and I'll show you the reins, because all I'm going to do now is I'm going to stick the tail on, I'm going to stick the little legs on, and I'm going to stick the wings on, and I am going to stick the miniature onto the base. So next week we can actually move on. Next week we can move on, and I can carry on with the painting, and we'll go through that together from step 1 to the end. And like I say, I am going to be taking a lot more time with the Lord of the Rings miniatures, because these ones are for my own personal private collection, which is absolutely awesome. So I shall say goodnight to everyone. I shall be back on Monday. Have an absolutely fantastic weekend. Lots of love to every single one of you, and thank you all so much for turning up. I know this is maybe I'm doing too many Twitch shows. I'm doing 3 a week now, and I don't want to pressurize everybody to watch my shows. Even if you pop in once a week in one of the shows, that is perfectly fine by me. So, love to every single one of you, and good night. You take care.